I didn't quite catch any of that. But alright, we're here again. Episode 18 of 5 of the Week. I suppose they all start with hello and welcome to 5 of the Week. I'm currently in the process of finding the background music for this recording, as it was not ready on hand. But yeah, here we go. Listeners will hear this. You guys won't. You guys being the most trusted co-host of the year award recipient, a cryptic pancake.
Hello, I'm a Cryptic Pancake. I'm the AD for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and my player plays for the Toronto Thunderbirds.
And then we have making his triumphant return from no notes last week, or was that Robo? Maybe it was both Robo and Taibo. Well, yeah, it's Taibo.
Hey, this is Taiwo, AD Texas Longhorns, and I play in Toronto.
Yes, the Toronto backcourt duo once again joining us. Speaking of backcourts, another return to the podcast. It's Theory once again. Welcome.
What's good, everyone? It's Theory, shooting guard, Maryland Terrapins, all around awesome person. But you know, it is what it is. I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah, you guys just are gonna have to take his word on the all-around great person. But I'm not sure we did not do this, or if we did this for you. Your history with sim leagues. Theory.
History.
Yeah. Well, do you have other history with sim leagues? So.
Ironically, no. This is actually my first sim league. I was when I was coming in, I had like a bunch of questions. I assume everyone has a bunch of questions. I'm thankful to a lot of the people, Shaka, Levin, you guys, just filling me in wherever I feel a little bit off, with my knowledge of it. Yeah, this is my first sim league.
Yeah, and I'm sure having people like Jay's fan in your first season. I'm not sure if you talked to him that much, but I think he played with you in Maryland.
I believe he did. Yeah. Like my first couple years.
Yeah, Jay's fan has vast experience with sim leagues, but yeah, that's obviously helpful. To bring some perspective to you, don't know if you listened to that particular episode then, but I also had experience with sim leagues for years, but I never was part of any point task sim leagues, so even with a lot of experience with hockey sim leagues, took a lot of getting used
to. Theory, you joined the league a day before Oko and I. Did you not make your player immediately, or what was the deal there?
Well, I made my player. I think it's just I took my time with scholarship offers, colleges in general.
Okay.
I think I wrote about it before. I was between Arizona and was between Arizona and Duke and Maryland, and I was making that decision for myself. So I eventually settled in Maryland. Haven't looked back.
Oh yeah, I guess you are in your fourth year. I didn't know that's one. Okay.
Yeah, staying for 4 years. You guys went for 2, and I went for 3.
I went 3 years. I went 3.
Yeah, and then there you go. All right. That's interesting to hear about other people's starting experience. Obviously, your experiences so far have been mostly based with the Maryland Terrapins. The SPA draft is looming next off-season.
Yep.
Canceling your download is not what the deal is. It's our voice is coming out too loud.
Oh no. Shit.
No,
okay,
no.
I'm turning down my volume.
Yeah. Now it's good. Right when I tried to start yelling, it wasn't. Yeah. For anyone trying to decipher what this was all about, I notified Pancake of the reverb we were getting, but now it's all settled. And with theories, histories, with Sim League, with the Sim League settled for now, we'll move on to our first topic of the week. It's the Atlantic Coast Division top dog battle, especially the West Virginia Mountaineers, who have quietly caught up to the Duke Blue Devils. They are now only 4 games back of the division leaders, Blue Devils, who started the season with was it 22-5, 23-5. So it's been quite a fall from grace. Some people amount that to schedule trouble, but maybe it's just plain old sim balancing and other teams with more TP or more on caps catching up to them. But nonetheless, the Mountaineers with 35 wins out of 63 games, their star players this season, Danny Jones from the point guard position, and then Ezekiel Bridges as the small forwards. What do you guys think about the West Virginia Mountaineers? Taiwo, you can go first.
I think they're good. Danny Jones and Ezekiel Bridges are doing good this season. But once they get to March, I don't think they're going to do that well because they only have 2 players, but except for their freshmen. But the freshmen don't have enough TPE to really do stuff in March, so I think they're going to lose first round. Sorry, Danger.
Let me catch up on Kai Sino, the freshman center he was mentioning, on what his fouling is at, but then Pancake can, in the meanwhile, give his opinions on the West Virginia.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if small forward, like dangerous filler, is starting right now, but I'm sure that if they make the playoffs, he will start then, at least. So in a way, they'll have 3 players then at the 250 mark, pretty much. And I think that should work out fine for them. Then I think at the very least they'll make it to the 2nd or 3rd round. But also, like, if you look at their record, like, they were doing fine for the most part, and then they had like 1 6-loss streak, or where they lost 7 in 8 games, and that kind of took the momentum like from behind their back for a while. And since then, they've actually been looking pretty well, like pretty good, and now they won 8 of their last 10, I believe. And I don't know. I think right now things are looking pretty good. Like, their 2 main players are both, or at the very least, Zeke, I know for a fact, is updating to the max he can every week, and that's really all you can hope from your players. And in the long run, I'm pretty sure it's gonna turn out at least decent for them, where they'll have a good playoff performance.
Yeah, the 6-game losing streak you mentioned. Basically the only thing holding them back from the divisional title right now. Obviously, the Duke side also bad on the road, but
they also had a 6-loss streak.
Yeah, from like the Bruins to we had a loss streak from the Bruins to, I believe, the Jets to Bruins. But those losses, outside of perhaps the Orange loss and the Bruins loss, they were like between 1 and 8 points, so they kept it close. Terrapin, they actually beat us by 1 about a couple games before they had that losing streak. But you know, it's one thing that actually really me was their free throw shooting. Their free throw shooting might not seem the best. I don't really see numbers wise how they could be a good free throw shooting team, but they hit their free throws occasionally, or they hit enough chances at the line to get those free points. So I see them as one of those inside playing type teams. They also shoot a lot of threes, but you know, that's just I don't know. I perceive it as the norm.
Yeah. speaking of free throws, the uncapping small forward Ezekiel Bridges, he's a freak build, which of course takes a toll on your build once you gotta pump up your fouling and athletics a bit more than the regular old standard build, which is basically why I guess he doesn't have free throw shooting yet. But as a whole team, allocating their attributes, the highest free throw rating is on Turner Swish, which I believe he's not starting at all. And then Danny Jones has 42, so that's only 7 TP in free throw shooting in their whole starting lineup. So in general, this kind of bad luck for Bridges, and with the team makeup, current team makeup, and the lack of awareness to this fact by the other guys is probably what's gonna hurt them the most. Like in a tightly contested game in the March tournament, bad free throw shooting is definitely the easiest way to cost you a game. Like if as a team you get fouled, get put to the line 25 times, and you make what, 11? That's
13 points you just left off.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah. And to make it be closer to the NCAA average, if you shoot 69%, 70% at the line as a team typically, then it's more like you're leaving 8 or 9 points, or 7 to 9 points. But yeah, well, that's already a winning margin. Like in most games, when you lose, you always wish you have those free throws back and you would have made them. But
I can definitely relate to that. There have been like certain games on my end where it's like, oh, you scored 19 points, but you went 4 for 10, and then you lose by 2. So you're thinking about it. So it does have its after effects.
Yeah, but you can't be faulted for that. Like you have like 75, 80 free throws. Like.
Oh no.
No. Yeah. The other guy, it was Chevelle, has like 70 or something, but you have around what?
60, closer to 60, I'll say.
All right,
closer to 60.
Let me see. 61, yes. All right. Yeah.
So like it comes in handy. I just think obviously it's a stat that a lot of people overlook. Obviously.
Yes.
Scoring points, 2 points, without having to take a chance at the line, a lot more feasible for some people. But I was actually looking through their roster. I have to say, I like how Jace Brawley, he's progressing throughout his years. There's still a couple of things I'd like to see out of him, but I think he would be my personal favorite, but that's probably because I like the 2 guard position. So
yeah. Last season, Jace Brawley was of course playing with the guard tandem of Babatunde Warrington and Amari Creed, which netted him probably a lot better looks than this season, where he maybe needs to create his own offense more. Which shows in his 3-point percentage this year, the same amount of attempts than last season for Jace Brawley, but a significant drop in effectiveness, 43.3 last season, and now only 36.1. That could also be the positional change from small forward to shooting guard, but I really don't see what that has to do with anything. Like maybe as a small forward you have more corner threes, but with an 83 mark at the 3-point shooting attribute, you're bound to hit more than 36.1 in any given season. Well, yeah.
It's accurate.
What are your honest expectations for the Mountaineers? Taivo already mentioned that they might be a candidate to drop in the first round. depending on their seed, it might be a so-called upset victory.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I see them as a first round upset, maximum second round exit. Pipe dream would be a Cinderella team, but I see them more of a second round exit at worst. Exit, or perhaps not even making it. We don't know. We'll have to check it out. See how the rest of the season unfolds.
As I said earlier, I'm expecting them to go to the second round. Like, I'd be surprised if they don't make the playoffs at all. Like, that would be very shocking to me.
Yeah.
But I also believe that depending on their matchup, they could beat a lot of teams with better records than them in the first round. So I guess it depends on who they're playing and also what the AD's like set for a game plan for that specific game.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I personally believe that they'll make it to the second round.
Yeah, so Mountaineers right now are looking at the 12th seed for the March tournament and are well above water with at least 7 games ahead of the 18th seed right now. So not too much cause for concern for the March berth, but the actual competing or the actual competence might be in question later, but that's for then. My honest expectation is somewhere along those lines, where unless they find a golden strategy for now and cruise through the rest of the season, they might be in trouble come March. But then we'll move on to our second team in focus this week. Not so rosy for these boys. Apologies to anyone who were expecting their athletic director to be on this week. He's traveling somewhere. The Indiana Hoosiers Robotastic Squad, for those who might miss the reference there, been driven a lot this season by AJ Darrow and, well, honestly, Sir Dabs and Cheese, who's been averaging 16 points per game and had a couple of 30-point games earlier in the season.
He had been averaging like 22 until he was taken out the starting lineup.
Yeah. Well, not sure if any of that was sustainable. I guess it was. If you do it for 40 games, then you should be able to do it for 40 more games. Like Sir Dabs and Cheese, a Cinderella story in this season's NCAA for sure. Their other stalwart players from last season, returning center, I think a senior by now, Plagueis the Wise, leads the league in blocks and somewhere in the top 20 in steals as well. So a candidate for the defensive player of the year, but the rest of the Indiana defensive not quite holding up to that mantle, which might hurt Plagueis' case, because as a center and a primary help defender at the rim, they're still not keeping anyone at bay and have some of the worst defensive efficiency numbers and also give up a lot of points.
And they give up the ball a lot as well.
Yeah.
Look at their turnovers. Just the only one I don't see that gives up as many turnovers doesn't even start. He plays about 14-15 minutes.
All right. Also, I think their main problem is they're literally the worst team at scoring the ball, which is kind of the whole point of basketball. Like, you win games by putting the ball through the opponent's hoop, and they've been averaging 74 points per game, which is pretty bad. And their defense, unlike last year, hasn't been able to carry them, because last year they had the league's best defense, but this year they're kind of middle of the pack, so they haven't been able to kind of compensate with that, and that's really been costing them.
Yeah, they really had trouble replacing Sen Morimoto, who left for the SBA draft or other sorts of inactivity last season. And Plagueis the Wise is tasked with defending 3 or 4 guys on any given night at the same time. What do you think about the Hoosiers and their aspirations this season, Taiwo?
They are not good at all, and the season is not going to be good for them because they only have one active, and he's capped. And then the rest of them are just fillers or inactive people. So all those fans in Indiana should have no hope for this season. Next season may be a Darrow and Caps, but it'll still be like a fresh on exit.
I think Pretty Girl is kind of in the loop, but not updating. And now that they've signed Crutchfield, he's also updating.
I forgot about him. Yeah, I forgot about him. So they have two actives.
Yeah, Crutchfield being Bryce Dawson, the new starting point guard, I assume. Yeah, I think so. Well, shooting guard on the index, so probably started at shooting guard. Whatever's going through Robotastic mind, we'll never know. As he's not here.
I would actually say it looks like. I would say, hey, you might need another distributor aside from Darrow into his assists, but at the same time, it gets the turnover numbers down when you can make the open look fine, the open guy. It leads to better opportunities to score. So once they shore up whatever this offense is, they can be able to, I think, make some strides, and I think another distributor would help.
Yeah, to me, they're not even using their strongest starting lineup. I think their strongest starting lineup, in light of stats, would be Bryce Dawson starting at point guard, AJ Darrow starting at shooting guard, and then Dabs and Cheese at the 3, and Buzak at the 4, and then Plagueis the Wise at the 5. Not sure if that.
Who's at the 3 right now?
That would be Darrow.
Oh, so what is their lineup?
Their lineup is Pretty Girl, Darrow.
Why is he starting?
Yeah, Pretty Girl, Dawson, Darrow, Buzak, and then Plagueis. But yeah, like I said, if I only could tell what's going through Robotastic's mind. Before we move past this hopeless pile of young bodies, let's go through their fundamental statistics. They're dead last in the Big Ten division, trailing the Michigan State Spartans by 4 games. They have 18 wins out of 61 games. That amounts to a win percentage of 29.5. Their most notable victories this season, I believe, they beat the Bruins in some sort of.
No, that was preseason. Forget it.
Yeah, they beat the Bruins in.
If that counts for anything.
Beat who?
They beat the Cardinals.
Yeah. Then the Cardinals as well. Yeah, that was the Sir Dabs and Cheese heroic, beating the Cardinals. 39 points, 11 rebounds. Yeah, I remember that one. But yeah, the one that was fresh off the top of my head was some sort of 70-60 game versus the UCLA Bruins. Yeah, here it is, 73-63. The Bruins lacking in answers in that game, but well, the Bruins are doing much better off, even with that loss to the Hoosiers.
Then they went immediately and lost by 36 to Kansas. So
Yeah, that's that's how the tide goes. Yeah. Also, a forgettable moment this season when they had the 2 least scoring games this season. 45 against the Bruins in the latest sim, number 13, and then a hot 41 versus the Cincinnati Bearcats, where the Bearcats doubled their tally with 82-41 back in like sim number 6. But yeah, alright. Hoosiers, a forgettable season. Let's move on to the move on to the Kansas Jayhawks. A rebuilding year was on the cards when I was starting to present the first team of the year, their athletic director, I don't know if it has a fictional name. It says here, general manager, Kansas Jayhawks. There you go. Kansas Jayhawks telling the folk in the sim thread that this is going to be a tough rebuilding year for the Jays. So it has been, but the rebuild has been accomplished a bit quicker than many would have anticipated. They now have 35 wins out of 62 games. They are comfortably sitting above the Mountaineers in the March seedings race by virtue of having one game less, that one game accounting for a loss. The Kansas Jayhawks have a uncapping, senior filler, Halter Wehrman, the Duke athletic director actually, Mr. Splashman.
They have 2 uncapping fillers.
Yeah, I was getting there. But yeah, also I should have worded it correctly. So they have 2 uncapping fillers, the Duke athletic director, Halter Wehrman, and the actual Kansas Jayhawks athletic director, Jays fan, as Sammy Tentos. For the first sim...
I don't think he's uncapping, but Baylor Swift and Thomas Sankara are uncapping.
Ah, yes, that's what it was. So Tentos is in his third year.
Dogbe, or however it's pronounced. On
Kara?
the bullet. Zifa Dogbe.
Zifa Dojbe.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Alright. So that, Sankara was playing for the Arizona Wildcats last year, but was dropped, I think. Whatever sort of thing. But yeah, Halter Wehrman started the year out with averaging like 11.1 rebounds for the first sim, and then even after 3 sims he was somewhere around 10 plus, and people had high hopes for his strength on the glass, but the strength on the glass, if it's only strength on the glass, doesn't mean much. So the Kansas were starting the season lacking in firepower, but now have seen some growth by Jack Acker and their point guard Alec Wood. Acker averaging 14.8 points per game and Alec Wood averaging 11.7 points per game with 5.8 assists to his name as well. DZ Fa Dog Bay. Alright.
Ziva Dogbe. Something like that.
DZIFA Zifa DOGBE Dojbe. Well, yeah, that's Dojbe. That's sort of like French African.
Cameroon.
Yeah. But Dogbe is like how I would read it if, like, I was talking in Finnish. Yeah, whatever. Zifa Dogbe. Alright, the Kansas Jayhawks, about their rebuilding year. They're your main competitors in the Big Ten division, if you might call them competitors, with 13 games in hand already. What do you think about the Jayhawks, Thierry?
Well, I think there's a lot of potential there with them. They're really good. They have 2 really good 3-point shooters, but they don't seem to be the best 3-point team. I believe, if I'm looking at this right, outside of Tentos and Sankara, they're not really a threat from outside. Then outside from Acker and Caesar, a threat from inside. But I believe we lost to them a couple of times. Well, we beat them once by 2 in the early in the season, and lost to them by 8, I believe. Later on,
you're reading it the wrong way. You lost to them.
Sorry, yeah.
At the start of the season, and then you beat them recently.
Thank you. That's what it was. During that loss, I think that was one of those moments where it was like, okay, I need to start working on free throws and shooting, really, because I went 2 for 10 in that game. But then they had 10 for 19 from Jack Acker, 14 for 27 from Tentos. They were just putting the ball in the hoop. 4 for 6. They were 10 for 27 from 3. What was it? Sammy Tentos was 3 for 8. So he didn't take that as much as I had. Elite Wood 4 for 6, just incredible. And they were a better free throw shooting team than what we had at that time. So potential. They've got potential. I don't think in the Big Ten, I don't think it's theirs to claim, but you know, that's just the Terrapin.
Yeah, it's quite impossible for them to catch up to the Terrapins, but they can create their own destiny, surely, from where they're at right now. What do you think about the Jayhawks, Taiwo?
I'm looking at their roster right now, and I see there are 2 uncapping fillers, and I like how much Acker's been earning this year. And a Wood, I don't know how much he's doing, but he looks like a good prospect. And they have 2 really good 3-point shooters and 4 decent 3-point shooters. Oh no, my connection.
You're still here.
Okay.
Yeah, so
But they
to
don't-
add to the thing Thierry said, there's also Samson Allerton with 77 3-point shooting,
And then Wood has
42.7.
72.
Yeah, the shooting point guard is always a tough one in the NCAA because you also have to handle the ball, so mainly won't be running off screens that much, at least. Unlike the small forwards and shooting guards, or then left open in the corners, more like the power forwards and small forwards as they are then. What do you think about the structure where you have 2 uncapping fillers, but then you have a lot of young prospects in the pipeline? Well, like that seems like a dream come true. Like when you can replace the uncapping fillers with another load of young prospects, and then the previous young prospects they uncap and go to the SBA, and then you kind of get the wheel rolling, you know.
Yeah, like that's honestly kind of the ideal scenario. And it's like, even though Jays fans said at the start of this season that this was supposed to be a rebuilding season, it was kind of a soft rebuild, I guess, because they did have 3 players that are at the like 199 plus TPE level, and that way at least they'll be a playoff team. Even though they probably won't make it crazy far in the playoffs, they will make the playoffs, and it just looks better then, especially if you're trying to recruit people then in the off season after the playoffs. If you can say that you were a playoff team, and you likely will be again next season, because you kind of have a pipeline going in and kind of replenishes itself as it goes.
Yeah, well, to be fair, 2/3 of the league are March Madness teams. So
That's
while
true.
while I can see the value in what you're saying, if you know the system at all, it shouldn't be that enticing. But also to consider with the heroics of Taiwo's Texas Longhorns last season, if they can have hot shooting nights in the March tournament, I don't see why they couldn't pick up at least a win. Like a win is more or less expected with this seeding if it keeps on going. Obviously, the game can be against whoever right now, but yeah, if they like just go flamethrower mode and shoot the lights out, they might just go through 1 or 2 teams in the tournament. I don't see why not. Obviously, that takes a lot of ifs, but you know. All right.
If the tournament were to happen right now, who would they be up against?
Let me see. Villanova.
Nova, I see.
And Villanova are like they have hard interior defense, and then they have like James Orange as a primary perimeter defense, but Adam McCappy and Nile Rivers, who I believe are both starting as the 2 and the 3, are not especially competent defenders yet.
Well, Rivers has a 75 steal though.
Has he? Thought he was
Mhm.
a filler. Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. P. Sanchez has been in the SBA for quite a while now. So yeah. Alright.
Yeah.
So yeah, scratch that. Villanova, at least their numbers show that they are one of the top 3 defenses in the league, I think. So yeah, I must have read the index wrong, calling Nal Rivers not a competent perimeter defender. Apologies to P. Sanchez, still a friend of the podcast, but a former guest on the podcast. Yeah. Second best defensive rating in the entire NCAA. So Villanova are just fine, I guess.
And they might be a tough opponent
Yeah.
going forward.
There's gonna be a lot of tough opponents for a lot of teams in the upcoming March Madness, but we'll discuss those more once we get to the final team we have here. Before the final team, we're gonna move on to the fourth team, the Louisville Cardinals. They're surprisingly in the lead of the what's it called, Big East division.
East.
Syracuse Orange and the University of Connecticut Huskies were well expected, in addition to the mentioned Villanova Wildcats, were well expected to duke it out at the top, and Louisville, with their last season's freshmen, probably were thought to be content on the outsides, but now they're on top with 4 games in hand. Leading by 4 games with a 44-17 record. If my eyes trust me correct, when I last looked at the league file, they're running a pretty nice game plan, which consists of putting 10s into everything. That's one of the old favorites of the league, and kayfabe, obviously a veteran of the game, knows what he's doing there. But for Louisville, last season's freshmen Iror Mitsu and Una Momento are the front court, and then this season's freshman recruit mentioned in the NCAA freshman first team, Rashid Ryder as the small forward, and then Clark Steele and Matt Damon is the shooting guard rotation, and then Ragnar Lesnar, the superior playmaker in the league, is the starting point guard. The Louisville team doesn't seem to be having, they don't seem to have like any extremely weak links in their lineup. What do you think about them, Taiwo?
Yeah, I think that they're a really good team. And the thing that they have a lot of depth and no players that are bad that are going to drag them down. I really like Matt Damon and Rashid Ryder. And the two backcourt players are going to uncap next year to make them even better. And Lesnar's just getting a bunch of assists, and he doesn't turn the ball over as much as someone.
Yeah, Ragnar Lesnar, not even the highest turnovers per game on his team. 1.7 compared to Reno Mitsu and Momento's 1.7 and 2.2. Although he then does have 8.5 assists. So an 8.5 assist to 1.7 turnover ratio is absolutely fantastic. Like it's 5.08. So he's really distributing the ball well, and the Louisville Cardinals are sure to celebrate this season, whatever the result might be, in the March tournament if they come up with the divisional title in the regular season.
Incredible what they're doing. It's honestly incredible. I tend to look at maybe like an X factor thing for them. In addition to just Clark Steele's production, I kind of like Matt Damon. I like his production off the bench. Rebounds as a whole, you know, is what I tend to look at. They have a bunch of good rebounders, and they're really good on the defensive rebounding front. Additionally, let's see here. I think I just missed it. Yeah, 4 really good shooters, 3 really solid shooters, and then Ragnar Lesnar, you know, and shooter from 3. So it's really a pick your poison. And then 3 4s and 5s, players at the 4 and 5 position, just ready to take you inside and or score on you. Really, they're really built on athleticism as well. So, Louisville should definitely be proud of this team.
Yeah, no, they're set up really well. Like, they make the second most points per game out of all the teams, only trailing the Terrapins. But then, in addition to that, they lead the league in assists and steals, and that just gives them a lot of possessions and easy buckets. And furthermore, like, they are very efficient, even though they have a high pace. They lead the league in field goals made, but they also attempt the third most in the whole league. And despite all that, like, despite them taking a lot of field goals, their field goal percentage is still around 500, which is always a good thing because that means that they're making them. I think one of the things that's kind of letting them down a little, I guess, which would make them even better, is if they had better free throw scores, because if you look, they're below the average in terms of free throw percentage. And if they made those, then still, that would probably boost them. Like, wait, I don't know how many they make. They make they make 15 free throws per game, and they shoot 55%. So if we say they'd score 13 more, then that would like elevate them 13 more points. And if they had those points, that would be very good. But that would be scoring 100%, so that's unrealistic. But my point is, if they make out of those 13 to get it to 100%, if they made like 70 to 80%, that would still be like 6-7 points, which would then still make them.
Yeah, they would parallel the Terrapins for sure.
Exactly.
And looking at things right now, their only uncapped player is actually the bench player Salachi Ray.
And Clark Steele.
Clark Steele does not have like applied TP because it's Ralph Jones's filler. He just like has earned TP up to 210, but he's only applied until 150. So even with the low amount of uncaps, that brings it to the point I was gonna make. Free throws are a luxury then if you're stuck at 199 with most of your players. It's impossible to make a cohesive, full-on, all-around team like this and then also concentrate on free throw shooting. That's just the nature of the NCAA, it seems. And they've done well to take everything into consideration to be this high in the standings, but shouldn't be much of a surprise with the duration of the season so far gone, this much gone. Them winning any game shouldn't be a surprise at all anymore. Like they should be a force to reckon with for the remainder of the season.
No, I was also gonna say it's kind of a crapshoot on for me personally. I look at their fouling, the fouling ends. While they do commit almost 19 fouls they also force 19 fouls a game from the opposing team. So in a way, I just go back to what Pancake was saying about if you know they're about 2 percentage points better, you know, then they're really dangerous in the NCAA. So yeah, just something that came to my mind. I thought I should share.
Yeah. If they were in the like above average, even in free throw shooting, like above league average, they might just be running away with the division title. But the harsh reality is that the 199 cap this season works against them, and they realistically should be the best team in the league next year. This is like a major warning for next season for everyone. If these guys can do this with 199, then imagine what happens next year when they get to the 300, 320, 340 mark around this time of the year. There's no stopping this group of guys if everything keeps on trucking along nicely. Kayfabe, like mentioned, a veteran of the game, sure to have some interesting strategies to make the best out of his guys in the tournament, unless he just resorts to the super special 10 in everything, which, well, not to fault him, has worked quite well so far. But the Louisville Cardinals were all in high hopes for them this and next season. And we'll move on to our last team in focus this week. We can have Theory do the introductory thing. I'll just mention that the Maryland Terrapins are 48 and 14, leading the Big Ten division. And then you can talk to us about the team makeup and the strengths. And most of the people know the strengths, of course, but yeah, educate the.
Right, for those that don't know, the Terrapins this year are very, very, come a better word, very, very good. For me, I think obviously the big story would be the rise of Othello and, you know, Big Chev. You know, we're all out here watching them flourish. You know, Ben Chevelle has been just going crazy. He's got a 54-point game. Othello is doing his thing on the rebounds, inside, you know, picking up wherever. It's like a big three of sorts, if you could think of it that way. Between Ben, Othello, and I, and of course, can't forget about Lenny, Lennox Hightower.
Or Shulkov, for that matter.
On the defensive end, we have Lenny doing his thing on the defensive end. I believe he's in the rankings for steals per game. Him and Al Pacino, just they shore up whatever defensive holes that we may have. I would love to say, you know, your boy is out here, you know, draining every three, doing everything. Recently, it's been going better. It's not player of the game worthy, I have to say. There's been strings of triple double doubles, you know what I mean? And I credit that to 11, really pointing out that, you know, hey, you know, we could have had these games, you know, but your free throw percentage wasn't that hot. You know, your free throw percentage, you know, you were missing those freebies. So, you know, it's something that we had to shore up, you know. I keep saying, you know, a lot, but you get it.
Yeah, well, the people are bound to know if you tell them, you know. Back to that thing I mentioned earlier, like the introduction I was gonna have for this part of the thing was like, I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on being a slightly smaller dog in a group of big dogs, or on a team of big dogs? But now that that's gone already, and you went through the
I don't mind it. I think in a sense, it's kind of what a championship team needs. So you kind of need to have that guy where years go by and people look back at that championship team. I'm speaking it into existence now. So
Or not, or out of existence.
no, but I for good teams, for solid, for well put together teams, you have to say, oh, these guys. There's always that guy that is dominant on the inside, the overall dominant guy inside, free throws, draws fouls, draws contact, and I think Ben has really stepped into that role. Then you also have the guy who can definitely give it to you on the defensive end, and I think Lenny, and Al Pacino, we've got a good defensive mindset between the three of us. Othello's there for the energy. Othello is there when we have an off night on a chance where I go 1 for 11 from the field. I can tell I shoot it, it's off the rim. Othello's grabbing the rebound, going for a putback. He's been I guess our X factor.
Yeah. I'm.
Yeah. Fourth in free throw percentage, so you can see that the free throw percentage has been going up. First in field goal percentage. Obviously that's the crux. First in margin of victory. So there's good signs coming up.
Yeah, the Terrapins have the number 1 ranked offense by offensive rating, and then the 10th highest ranked defense by defensive rating. And if I'm not mistaken, Al Pacino is actually the second worst defender on the team. This is a little shout out to my boy Abaddon. But Al Pacino by defensive rating metrics is the worst defender on the team, who's played more than 10 minutes a game. Good ups for him, and hopefully I can hear more of that defensive monster and defensive beast, and I should be playing more talk. Yeah, this is why I'm not playing more. About the Isaac Allen-Richmond thing, you in person, I was intrigued by this statistic here that even with 2 big inside scorers on your team now, Chevelle and Othello Hawkins both, last season and the season before that, you were one of the driving forces of the offense with the perimeter shooting and perimeter shooting and athleticism and all that. But now this season, with 2 dominant bigs already in the middle, most of your attempts have come from the inside actually. So
Yeah,
it has shifted a lot in the fashion, and I'm intrigued to see some of the play-by-plays. I should go and look at them, as everyone has access to them if they know how to look. But 4.5 attempts in the paint and only 4.4 attempts from the 3-point line or beyond. So actually, with lower usage, you now have higher true shooting percentage and way higher point per shot attempt. So and
it's kind of a strange thing. I think it's the fact that when you expand your game, because I one of the things I wanted to do in the off season for this coming draft and beyond, this draft beyond, was expand my game inside, simply to keep the offenses guessing. Obviously in certain games, I think the game that I can remember the most is like in games, you have games where I would go 3 for 12 and I would only shoot 7 shots from the 3-point land. It's just a matter, it's a matter of finding out my rhythm, finding out what I need to do to get those shots down. But I think expanding the game has benefits in the long run, simply because if you can shoot, they'll have to worry about your shot. If you can
drive and finish, then
don't
you
worry
can
about
take
that.
them then you can take them on any way you can. Any way in the book, really.
Exactly. The world, the field, the court really opens up once you have both. And also, additionally, shout out to my passing. Been getting more assists, and I think that's another thing. Um, being a secondary kind of, not necessarily a handler, but more of a distributor. I think that's really helped expand what I can do. I think I read a report where it's like, oh, Isaac Allen-Richmond, kind of more of a jack of all trades kind of guy, and I think that's a good fit. Um, Obviously, the secondary statement to that is like master of none, but the case with me. I think, yeah, passing has really expanded the game for me, and I was already grabbing a lot of rebounds, a good amount of rebounds for my position and my rating on the rebounding scale of sorts. Um, but yeah, I think expanding my game really opens the court, so I can do a lot more things.
Yeah, the
We'll
way
probably see a lot more.
Yeah.
That was a long-winded answer, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. Nothing awful, all good talk anyway. The way I understand is that now that you're a shooting threat and a drive threat, you get more assists because you have a dominant big man, and then you can drive and then you can like lay it off to them to finish, because then once there's interplay, like of course it doesn't go too in depth, but we can like kind of figure out a simple like screen and roll play with Hawkins or Chevelle, where they have to guard both men equally, but then if the other one gets loose, then you have to bring additional attention to them, and then like you can see where this is going. You know basketball, of course. So that
Yeah.
creates
And
more assists to you then, because you're also a threat on the inside, and it's way easier to pass from like cross paint than across court.
yeah, and additionally, I was gonna say a game. This is what I mean when I say the court really expands. Now that I'm more efficient at my free throws, you'll have a game like against the Ducks, blew out the Ducks, blew out the Ducks. Benny got the player of the game, but my stat line reads like 2 of 5 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3-point land, 9 of 12 from the free throw line, points, 4 steals,
Yeah,
6
yeah,
boards, 11 assists. It definitely helps me. I don't want to say pat the stats, but you get
yeah.
you get my
The,
drift when
the
I
team dynamic becomes even better, like. But one thing I wanted to go to is because both Taiwo and Pancake, they're also they were shooting guards in the NCAA. Now they have to like go between the both guard positions in Toronto. So I wanted to ask if Pancake and Taiwo have like some suggestions on what to expect from the rest of the season with your build, and what to expect from the SBA then once you make it there. Like if you guys have any like thoughts or tips of sort of, or
Well,
then in general what to
I
expect.
mean, I was the guard that was kind of moved to the point guard position, and so due to that, like my scoring did kind of go down a bit in the first year. It's up again now, but like my main focus for my rookie season was really getting my passing up to the 80, which was my cap, or is my cap, I guess. And so due to that, I really didn't invest in anything else other than the passing and handling. And like Taiwo, for example, I know he went into rebounding a bit and more into athletics than me. And so due to that, he obviously grabs more rebounds, but uh, overall, it's really hasn't been a huge change. Like as a whole, like the stat line, I don't really think the positions make that huge of a difference in what you do, other than like on defense maybe. But other than that, like I think only rebounding and blocking and steals really get affected by what position you're at, because the rest, like passing and stuff,
Yeah, they're all natural.
like from what I've seen, it more depends on your stat more than like where you play at.
Yeah, other than like centers having a lot of 3-point shooting, that's just they won't get like to
Yeah.
the 7 attempts per game average. at all. Taiwo, do you have like any comments on what to expect, or from your point of view for Theory?
Just expect like, since you're a good prospect, you're gonna go to a bad team. Since you're gonna be a high pick, most likely, so expect losses. Expect worse stats, and don't be mad when you like perform bad, because when you're young, you have a lot of up and down performances. But and also expect to turn the ball over a lot more because the defenders in the SBA are crazy.
I was. Thank you for that. Actually, I was actually, musing about like the SBA. I think it was the season before this, and we were talking. I think I was on this podcast as well. Um,
Yeah, before the draft.
yeah, one of those scores that were just so outrageous. It was a playoff game.
Yeah, 168 to 162 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm mentally preparing myself for that. Everybody's gonna be basically a god, so you've got to attain godhood as well. So I think Pancake was actually kind of correct. I do want to get my handling on point simply because I'm also a point guard as like the backup position. But
Yeah.
Ball over less. Right now I'm looking at the averages and the ball over 0.2. I'm up 0.2 in the turnovers from now, and I'm actually down by about 2 points, roughly 1.9, 2 points.
Yeah, but that's the Chevelle effect, more or less.
I think that's just the nature of the beast. I'm up in free throw percentage, so I'm not necessarily. I'm up in free throw percentage by about 10%.
Yeah, and that's gonna be vital. Like these guys have their free throws, like at least. Well, Pancake has some weird free throws attribute, like, but Taiwo has good free throws because he was the. There was the UNC camp for Tyron King's free throw shooting camp, I believe. So
I never touched free throws in college.
yeah, the
I
free
shot like
throws.
70%, but I was mainly a 3-point shooter in college.
Yeah, but the free
Like,
I
throws.
was the only one on my team who could shoot free throws.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
Like on Notre Dame, we had 10 threes and we were just chucking up like crazy. So.
Yeah, but that in
that was a
the
free throw shooter.
in the SBA, you're gonna have to like
I
make
shoot
sure
like
you take the 3
this
points.
season. I don't know what you're on about.
Huh?
I'm shooting
My
really
no
high.
averages aren't
for,
related.
like my
Yeah,
rating.
I just mentioned the attribute. I said some sort of weird attribute. I don't know your.
No, I
percentage.
have like 75, I believe.
Oh, now you have, yeah, yeah. But you used to have like 62 or like 60.
Yeah, I did a little training in like the off season, but I really
You went
haven't
to the
touched
camp.
it much.
Went to the camp.
Yeah, 75 free throw, but I mean, I'm shooting like 80%, so I don't even want to like put that much more in right now.
Yeah, well, of course, everyone would like to be like Chris Paul or Malcolm Brogdon from the free throw line, like 96.7, but it's a pipe dream, I guess.
Season shooting, free throws. Where's the free throws? I'm shooting 82%, which is good enough.
Yeah, quite nice, quite nice.
And that was kind of my flaw with everything else outside of free throws. I had built up, a decent inside. I was building around athletics as well. My jump and quickness are at 80. My three pointer has been 80 for a while, but on top of that, I was looking at my jump shot and like my mid range, and I was like, oh, I could always, let me boost that up. And I boosted that to a certain extent, and I was like, okay, this would be fine. Then games were coming out, and I would go like 4 for 19, and I'm like, wow.
Jump shot's a weird
Yeah,
step
but,
because
yeah.
it like changes the volume, not the actual percentage you scored at.
It like barely
That's
changes
the
the
mistake that a lot of people
percentages,
make.
but it more so makes you take more jump shots. But
Yeah.
then if the like you get the idea. At lower jump shot, you take like 4 per game and make them at 39% of the time, and then at a higher jump shot, you take like 13 per game and make them at 42%. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just the nature of the mid-range shot. Like it's valuable against some defenses once in a blue moon, but it's not like it's not.
And it's not the most effective. But like I
Yeah.
said,
I
like
mean,
it,
the mid range is the worst shot you can take in basketball. That's
Yeah.
that's a fact.
I mean, well, now it is, but I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
But in my head, I always think to parrot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Personal thing. Just be prepared in general. Going forward, I probably also, once I get my free throw, jump shot, squared off, I'll probably work on perimeter defense. Even though, hey, a lot of people don't probably overlook it until you get to the SBA. I was told.
yeah, that's the thing people don't generally touch
Yeah.
till they get the
Because
SB. They'll prioritize something
yeah.
like stealing.
Yeah, like high
That's why I get
athletics,
it.
high stealing, high scoring costs so
Yeah.
much that then like digging into Perry and post defense is like a bigger undertaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to like prolong this to unnecessary lengths. Also, been listening to Danger Golding back when he used to do the podcast. This has now been somewhere around an hour mark, so we should better wrap this up so it's like it keeps some sense in it. So hopefully you feel a bit more prepared to the SBA with the tips these guys had, and my tip would be that even if you are drafted number 1, don't even expect to start. Like I'm not starting, and
If
Robotastic
you're
Prime
drafted
wasn't
number
starting.
9, expect to start.
Yeah, but a big thank you nonetheless to Theory for coming on and doing his large spiel about the Maryland Terrapins and his career so far. It's always good perspective to bring.
It's good to be here. JJ Harklewood should be starting. Just letting you guys know.
Yeah,
Travesty.
I'm not.
You're trying to get invited back onto the podcast in the future, huh?
Yeah, I'm not gonna start any kind of shit. If the guys in front of me have higher TP, then I don't really see a problem. It doesn't make me happy, but like it's best for the team. And then thank you to Taivo and Pancake.
It's always a pleasure.
Taivo has the red microphone icon next to his name, so no goodbye from Taivo. But
Oh, goodbye.
goodbye.
I was talking to my sister. I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course, no problem. And by at Okochastar, it's at Okochastar. Thank you very much. Bye.